Good morning and welcome to the Needham School Gardens here in Durango, Colorado. My name is Darrin Parmenter. I'm the director and horticulturist with the Plata County Extension, and I've worked closely with the Durango Botanic Gardens for a number of years, and I'm excited to do a little presentation on tools. So these are the tools in the garden, and even though it's the middle of November, these are tools that we can still use because it's still so warm out. So I got 3 tools, or maybe 4 if I get enough time, just to go through with you, and then we'll go from there. The first tool, and I'll preface this one, this is a vegetable gardening tool. This is called a Dibble board. So I know some of you with the botanic gardens aren't always stuck in the vegetable garden. You're tending your ornamental and your herbaceous gardens and do an amazing job with that. But we do have what's called a Dibble board, and I use a Dibble board when we're seeding crops into the vegetable garden. This doesn't have to be used when you're doing a tomato, obviously, peppers, those things that are transplanted. But some of our smaller seeded crops like carrots or lettuce or some of the beets, or if you want to get into bigger crops, bigger seeded crops like beans or even squash on a big distance, this is a great tool to have. I tend to be what we call an OCD gardener. So I like things in their place when I get to my vegetable beds. My vegetable beds are all the same dimension. They're all going to be 4 feet wide. And when they're 4 feet wide, something like this, which is 1 square foot, so it's 1 foot by 1 foot, seems to work really well. All we do is we take this board, which has equally spaced pegs that are, and this Dibble board is 3 inches. You can make a Dibble board 4 inches wide. You can make them 2 inches or 4 inches apart or 2 inches apart. It doesn't really matter. They're relatively easy to make. It's just 2 pieces of plywood that we glue and screw, stick a handle on the back of it, and then we draw a grid. So that grid on the bottom, again, these grids, wherever they intersect is going to be 3 inches. That's how I set this up. Every single place I drill through one of these pieces of plywood, stick a 2-inch peg in there, glue it in, and hope for the best. You can see with this one, as I show it to you, some of them are cattywampus. I've got one missing here. I've lent this out to the Needham elementary kids for the last 8 to 10 years. They tend to put a herding on it, which is fine because we just make more of them. They're easy to make. So all we do is we take this, we press down nice and firmly throughout the entire weight of the board, and I pull it out, and I can get 12, or in this case 16 equally spaced holes, each one 3 inches apart, each one the same depth. And it just seems to work well for me because my least favorite thing to do in the vegetable garden is to thin. I hate thinning. So I'm more confident when just doing this as opposed to using my finger or a stick to draw the line or to draw my furrow and then drop seeds in. With my big fat fingers, you want to drop 1 seed in and you end up dropping 4 in there and then you can't find them. So with this, a Dibble board seems to work really well. The second tool I use is not just for the vegetable garden, it's also for my weeding of my herbaceous beds. I use it in the lawn to pop weeds, and it's called a hori-hori. I'm pretty sure, I think it's a Jeopardy question. Hori-hori means dig in Spanish. I'm Spanish, in Japanese there. I would have gotten that question wrong on Jeopardy. So, again, this is a simple tool. One side is sharp, one side is serrated. You can make this as sharp as you want. We have a simple measuring on this, so it goes from 1 inch to 6 inches in case we're trying to figure out how deep to put our bulbs in that we got from the Durango Botanic Gardens. I can weed with this one. This is my #1 weeding tool, especially for some of our perennial weeds, which are deeper rooted. This can get down and pop those weeds out a little bit better. If I do have a lot of woody roots on those, let's say you're trying to get out common mallow, which has a really long taproot. If you don't get that really long taproot out, then that plant's going to put out more plant that next year. So something like this, I can cut through that root as deep as I can and then just pop it out. The best part of this tool is it also has the famous beer can opener right there. So after a long day in the garden, you just pop that beer can, and not here at the school garden, of course. But at that home garden, just pop your beer bottle and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So, hori-hori, I've had a couple of them over the last 10, 15 years. One of my favorite tools, probably one of the top tools I use in the garden. The other tool we're going to talk about is pruners. So of course, when we do these videos, we have fire trucks driving by and concrete trucks. If I was the 3-year-old kid out here, I'd be in heaven because there's nothing but big trucks driving by. Felco pruners. So this is my last, favorite tool. I've been using Felco since I started landscaping back in the early 90s. There's plenty of different types of pruners out there. Anything from the cheapies that you can get at the home improvement stores to something like this, which again, these are called Felco 2s. You can get them at our local nurseries, online, but I love them just because they're durable, and I put a fair amount of use onto these. So these are what we call a bypass pruner, which means you have a top and a bottom, and those two bypass each other. Okay, so if we have a clean, sharp edge on this cutting edge right here, that creates a very clean cut. When we're pruning live wood out, we want a clean cut. The cleaner it is, the faster it's going to heal, the faster it's going to callus over, and then we reduce that chance of insects or disease coming into those pruning cuts and creating more problems for us. So again, we have what are called bypass pruners. Their type of pruners is called an anvil pruner. Anvil pruners, instead of having this as a cutting edge, it has a flat bottom. So we smash. It can take a lot more weight and probably a thicker branch to cut or twig or whatever it is, but it smashes. Again, if you're smashing something, it's probably not going to heal and callus over as quickly as something that's done with a sharp edge. When it comes to pruners, my recommendation is to clean them, sanitize them just using simple bleach or isopropyl alcohol after each day's use, and then also to sharpen that edge. Again, a sharp edge is going to be the best component of your pruners. And what we do, and I forgot my sharpener, but this is, again, the cutting edge is right here. We're just going to take our file, a round file or flat file, and just go along that edge at about a 45 degree. We keep kind of going down about 10 to 20 times on that blade edge, and then put them back in our sheath. Again, the wonderful thing about these sheaths is there's a purpose. One is you don't tend to lose them. And the other part is it just keeps it a little bit cleaner when we overwinter. So 3 of my favorite tools here for the perennial and vegetable garden. Maybe at some point in the spring or next summer, we can do some of our bigger tools like the hose and shovels. Because again, when it comes to growing in Colorado and in the Intermountain West, you got a short growing season, but the weeds and the plants realize that, so you got to stay on top of it with some of your favorite tools. Thanks again.